Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with jazz singer Candice Hoyes on the new 2025 single, Faraway Star. In light of wrapping up April's Jazz Appreciation Month, we get into a brand new single from this award-winning Harlem-based visionary. The song honors Duke Ellington as it bridges iconic jazz with the contemporary styling. She teams up with the Grammy winner Ted Nash, and we get into this song, music in 2025, and so much more going on. Enjoy this interview. It's great to catch back up with you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. So let's get into the new single, Faraway Star. Give me an idea of, it honors Duke Ellington. There's so much that's going into it. There's wonderful players on this like Ted Nash. How did this idea come about?
Well, it started years ago. I was researching Duke Ellington, just coming off of a really incredible formative tour with Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra, national tour, and recording a double album called Abyssinian Mass. And that was when I met these extraordinary colleagues and was also able to have this really more extended conversation over breakfast and after the dates and just sort of talking through inspirations and rare recordings and type of fun stuff that can happen on the road when you're, traveling by bus across the country. And when I got back to New York, I was deeply inspired and started to imagine a project around Duke Ellington's soprano music. And I really started to think more about Serenade to Sweden and Alice Babs, the Swedish vocalist, and why it was that Ellington chose the soprano voice and was so taken with these particular songs that he wrote for soprano. And it really kind of led me directly to Faraway Star.
So talk to me a little bit about the players. Talk to me about how well did you all work together on this? I know every time it's always about chemistry and coming together and how things work. How seamless was this process?
It was so wonderful. Before we even played a note, we had such a wonderful connection from working on Abyssinian Mass. And they all, when you talk about Vincent Gardner and you talk about Ted Nash and some of the other artists that I'm playing with, Yasushi Nakamura, Adam Birnbaum. They're just artists who have so much of their own compositions and music going on that it was so wonderful and easy to engage with them around their performances of other things and talk about a range of ideas and even just the range of approaches we could take to the song, how we could do the arrangement. And that was something I particularly took up with Ted. How do we want to reimagine this? And it's not something I'd ever heard performed, which is always a kind of fun challenge to say, I've never heard anyone's take on this besides, this recording from, before I was born. What does that mean to me? And how do I connect to that? But they're just a real pleasure. They're really all so supportive. And, I think we'd already started to make memories through these extraordinary concerts. And so that was a wonderful, jumping off point for making music and for friendship.
So the one thing about all of these different players on this project and in general is that we all come in with these influences. And in the jazz lexicon, there's influential people that we listened to growing up, concerts that we saw. And how important was Duke or any of these early orchestrators of this jazz music on your development and your honoring him with this song?
Well, I think that one of the most important impacts that Duke has had on me as an artist, besides the very sound and the very musical spirit and presence, and just basically being such a giant presence in American music, there's that layer. But I think one of the things that Duke Ellington's music has always stood for in my mind is that jazz began as a social music, and Black music is about and for socializing, it's for community expression and community connection. And, when you think about the big band uh, and big band jazz and a large ensemble like that, that's a music that evolved in a social environment. It's not for um, you know, it's not for an academic setting. It has become that over generations. And that is definitely a part of very much a part of the conversation right now. But when I return to those recordings, I think, how did this function um, for the people who are listening? Also, not just the players, and it's not just about like, oh, the brilliance of these musicians. It's so much about, wow, look at the spiritual nature and the depth that this had for the people listening, and the people, it's at a time dancing to this music, but also mobilizing them through the civil rights movement, through actions where the focus was on liberating people's voices, democracy, equality, social justice, the values that are so important right now in 2025. For me and for so many Americans, I dare to say all of us. And so, I will always return to Ellington for those like ways of perspectives, and a sense of where we've been and what we can learn from that, if that makes sense.
It does, and
Yeah.
yeah, it totally does, and I'm so glad that you brought that parallelism between, what the early pioneers of not only this music, but of going against things that are unjust. And 2025 is a strange time. There's so many anxiety-inducing things that are coming from DC, and I'm wondering, in your philosophy, along with Night Beauty and everything that you're doing as an artist, how important do you see not only music, but hearkening back to a time where Duke and a lot of those musicians had to overcome? How much of that do you see being forward momentum, or something that is going to be inspiring to us as we live through very strange times in 2025?
I, to my core, in every aspect of who I am, from being an artist, a daughter, a thinker, an educator, a parent, a citizen, um, a first generation American. There's, in every regard of how I'm living my life, I think it's vital that I'm a musician who speaks to history, who tells the truth, who includes everyone in my vision of how I sound. I think playing music with a large ensemble in the way that we are, where we're all in conversation and every voice can be heard, and uplifted, is part of my message with Faraway Star. It's a song that originated as a Swedish folk song that Duke really loved, and that's how it reached my consciousness. And I think if you understand the history of things and you keep that history alive rather than trying to erase it, we're all stronger for that. And that's how music has to function, as a lot of our historical institutions and schools, teachers are um, being bombarded and suppressed in many ways. In Washington D.C., from the on the federal level, and we, even radio, our precious radio, and um, PBS, and all of these outlets for education and history are being pressurized. And um, the way that I can support is to keep it alive in the song and the sound and the story I'm telling with my songs. And songs cannot be dismantled the way a building can, or a library. Um, I funded this music myself, so I can't be defunded. But I can say, I mean, of course, you can be, if the radio is under pressure, then the musicians are under pressure too. So um, I have to stay committed to making the music and finding new ways to share it. And I have to believe that it can't be suppressed.
Are you hopeful? I mean, being a musician and a music that brings so many people joy in these modern times that we're living through and revisiting Duke, when you look at where we're going, I know things are stressful, but are you ultimately hopeful?
I am always hopeful. I think that history and close tie to my ancestral heritage that I actively revisit is a way for me to um, know that what I'm doing makes an impact. Uh, you know, we just this particular week, I don't know when this broadcast will air exactly, but we just lost Sly Stone. And there's nobody, I mean, no American musician who hasn't been touched by his music. And it's not just because I'm an artist, it's because music really absorbs into the way we communicate with each other and the way we treat each other. And, you know, on so many levels, like when I was talking this week with my colleagues about Sly Stone and rehearsals and stuff, we're like, oh, this album got me through college. This album got me through, this breakup and so forth. And I oftentimes actually, when I'm working with a group as an educator, especially if they're not musicians, I'll say, can you name a song that moved you in a time of you're in transition or a crossroads? And that's because that's the type of thing that music can do. And so that's why I think that music is like a vessel of hope. Um, and I steep myself in that. I do not think when I studied with Cornel West in college, and he used to talk about the distinction between hope and optimism. And he said that hope is an aspect of his faith that is imbued, in everything he does. And yet um, he doesn't discuss optimism because he thinks that that's too passive and that hope has to be an active thing. Um, and it's something the way that you behave in public, the way that you act in public. And so hope is an action, and I'm acting with that. And I hope that my actions, um, you know, my actions, that's what they mean. And that's what they're extending to others. So it's
Yep.
like a very active thing. I'm trying to keep rooted in what can I do? What can I build? Who can I help? What can I hear? What can I understand? Um, and I think, but I also want to say, at this moment for us, because of the tactics, the tactics, I'll say, that are being used, staying active can sound exhausting. So I also want to say that we cannot, you know, constantly be in motion. Some of the hope can just be actions within your own community, that your own local environment that you're already connected to, and that can have a great impact. You can help a school that you already help, and you just maybe help them in a new way or a little more. Plan a day of service in a place where you already work. I think some of those things are other actions of hope that don't have to always be draining.
And I think every little thing is going to be a synergistic whole. Like Cornel West, I'm always so comforted whenever I hear him speak because he represents such an intelligent voice of history and marching forward and not giving in to the evil that's out there. And there's certainly
Right.
a lot of that going on right now. Um, and I think what you're doing is a part of that synergistic positivity that's going out into the world. So my question to you is, what are you doing to as far as live music, and where can people pick up this single and anything else with Night Beauty that's going on with you?
Oh, I'm very excited to share that I am part of uh, another ensemble called Rotary Connection 222. And I will be playing at the Museum of Contemporary Art in July with that ensemble. I'm singing all of Minnie Riperton's music. I'm singing that voice part, which is such an honor. This is a project that is led by the Stepney sisters, who are the three daughters descending from Charles Stepney, the great and visionary composer that we lost way too soon, responsible for Rotary Connection, of course, and also Earth, Wind, and Fire, and many other incredible recordings and compositions. And then we will move on to the We Out Here Festival in the UK. And I'm just super excited to work with Junius Paul and Deshaun Jones and Mekhi McCraven on this incredible music of Charles Stepney. He's another, like Ellington, another figure that's very looms large in my imagination. And I've always wanted to sing this Minnie Riperton music with orchestra. So I'm super excited about that concert, those two concerts for the summer. And then in the fall, I'm going to be doing more with the Faraway Star and the other songs of the Ellington songbook for the fall season. That will some things that I'm still waiting to be announced, but I should say that everything can be found on my website or my Instagram. I put all my tour dates there.
Wonderful. I will lead everybody in that direction. Candice, as before, it's always wonderful to catch up with you. Thank you for the light you're putting out into the world. Thank you for your music, and best of luck with everything that comes forward. Hopefully we catch up down the line.
I look forward to that, and thank you always for being such a affirming and welcoming place for me. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and singers and minds in Harlem, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Candice for swinging on back by the show. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends. Jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are very excited to let you know about the second annual Lee Summit Jazz Festival taking place again this summer on June 28th at the Bridge Space, located at 210 Southwest Market Street in downtown Lee Summit. Following the success of the 2024 festival, the lineup will include Lee Summit students, Casey Area Youth Jazz, Paganova with Michael Pagan, Horoscope with Stan Kessler, Brad Gregory, Adam Larson, and the Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be food trucks and vendors to round out a day of celebration. Early bird tickets are 2 for $30, and all details can be found at lsjazzfest.com. We can't wait to see you there.